Good morning, everybody. Thanks for taking the time this morning to check out this webinar. Let's get right into it. Hopefully everyone's got their screens up and their coffee's ready. So what is a mobile strategy? This is, of course, the focus of the entire discussion today. You probably already have a mobile strategy if you do any work in the field. And if you're in the equipment business, you probably do work in the field, especially for service work, and that's going to be the focus today. You've already figured out how to get your vans out to the customers and meet their service needs. So today's discussion is about fine-tuning your strategy with information technology, which is, of course, a very generic term, but I'm going to get into a lot more detail about what that means. I'll explain how converting your paper-based field communications to a digital medium it's going to increase your competitive advantage, you're going to save money, and in the end, you're going to improve your relationship with help you with retention. So first, let's discuss the common paper strategy. This is just one possible workflow for a paper strategy. There are a lot of minor variations. You may have different work rules. You may have different rules about when your technicians go back to the office and pick up parts, etc. So, but the theme is the same. The theme is a paper-based theme. The customer and gives their information. If it's a call-in, it's typically a breakdown, and the dispatcher or service coordinator in the branch will manually enter that information, of course, into the business system. Then they have to produce a copy of that information somehow via email, via paper, via fax, possibly something that goes into the mail bin of the technician, the field technician, when they come back to the branch. And that is the method that the information that the customer gave to the dispatcher is transferred to the technician. So it's by a physical piece of paper. The field tech grabs that paperwork in some way and takes it out to the field, and then they can finally do the real work. They actually can go out to the customer site and perform the work, but only after they've got the paper in hand. So it's possible that could cause a delay depending on exactly where the technician was when the order was called in. So the customer signs the work order, assuming everything went well, signs the work order on paper, and then the technician will send in the work order in an ideal world directly back to the branch that night after they get back either to their home office or if they are based out of the branch location at the branch. So what happens? If they go back to their home office, it's probably more likely that it's not an ideal world. It's more likely that the paperwork tends to pile up at home, and it's sent in batches. And hopefully those batches are every day. Possibly it's every few days. And in many cases that we've definitely heard from our customer base, this turns into one of those end-of-month processes, which are with the right controls are largely unnecessary, but happens at many of our customers that it's going to be part of that end-of-month rush. Work orders from the beginning of the month may get pushed to close to the end of the month. So once all that data is sent into the branch location, then somebody in the service department has to manually enter it. So what's that going to mean? They're going to make mistakes. They're going to have to read the handwriting of all of your service technicians. There's a chance for an error. Not to mention that wastes a lot of time. I mean, all that information was technically entered by the technician onto the paper. So again, the dispatcher has to do it a second time. Again, assuming everything went well at the service call, now you can finally invoice. And in my example, you've basically burned about a week generating the invoice, even though you got the call on Monday. Of course, this is just one example. A lot of different examples are available. So this is about a week, but remember, this can get kind of out of control because there's sort of another phenomenon that happens here. When you delay the invoicing to the customer, they tend to forget about you, meaning they tend to forget why you did the service in the first place. So imagine a situation where you wait till the end of the month to send in these work orders. That could delay you 30 days. If you have any kind of terms with the customer, payment terms with the customer, they may not pay the moment the invoice arrives. It might be 30-day terms as possible. And then finally, by the time they get their eyes on the invoice, it could be 30, 60 days later and they don't really remember why they're even paying it. They may put it in a review pile or call it in, and that could delay a whole additional billing cycle. So now you've turned your several days of delay into losing the customer's attention and then possibly pushing it out 30, 60, and of course in an extreme case even maybe 90 days down the road, which you probably have a few customers like that. So, summary. You generate a service delay, you increase your paper and delivery costs, you add travel costs, you lower your service quality, you're adding a chance of error by reprocessing this paperwork. You're certainly doing duplicate work from the service side, and you're creating a delay in terms of the invoice. So now this is a different version of the same timeline. This is the wireless strategy, right? So we're talking about what is your mobile strategy. Here's a wireless strategy to replace the paper strategy. It looks a lot better. Now, of course, this is not the only possible workflow, but this is a good example of how a wireless strategy may have solved the problems that we saw in the previous workflow. So the customer calls in with a request. The request can be assigned immediately because the paper process was replaced with a digital one. That means that the technician is in the field. Instead of with a stack of paper and a clipboard, they have a wireless handheld device. That's going to take these multi-day delays down to hours. The information that your tech enters into their device appears in the business system automatically, and vice versa. All the information that the dispatcher puts in, like for example here with the customer's service request, appears on the technician's device within just minutes. So this is good because it cuts down the time for service, which the customer will be very happy about. You're going to be happy about it as a dealership because you're generating the invoice more quickly. And even the technician is going to be happy. They have more information more quickly, less doubling back, and given that they have a mobile device, they're going to have more information at their fingertips. So, I mean, those are some of the benefits, and I think you wouldn't be in this webinar if you didn't already know that there was going to be a value for a mobile strategy. But you can't get away in this presentation without presenting the big slide. You know, what are these benefits? Why are we here? Where are we spending our time discussing this strategy? There's probably too many specific ones to list, but here's some general ones. In the category of customer satisfaction, we're talking about shorter service completion times. You're going to get to your customer more quickly. You're going to have a shorter wait on back-ordered parts, and this is something we'll see during the demo. But because the van inventory is directly connected to your ERP system, then you have the advantage of being able to order the parts required for service right away, that day. It can be a part of today's part order. And if it's not an emergency service, if it's a PM, then and the service technicians, we can make sure that we don't have to back order typically stocked parts. Those can be ordered more quickly and replenished more quickly for the van. The invoice arrives when the customer remembers you. You are the hero when the invoice arrives with a digital system versus the customer scratching their head trying to remember why you were there in the first place. If their truck broke down and they called you and you showed up the same day and fixed it, that is incredible service, and that's something that you want to leverage when you're invoicing the customer. From the customer standpoint, and really from the dealership standpoint, fewer data entry errors are a big improvement. That means that the invoices are correct. The parts orders for service that requires a part order is more likely to be correct, and that means that the customer is going to be, again, we're going to go back to the first item, the service completion times are going to go down. Less errors, faster service. Under cost reduction, there's a lot of items that can fall in this category. I'm going to just generally say all the costs around paper. So getting those special work order sheets, printing, faxing, filing, shipping, whatever it is that you're doing now, walk around your office, look for the paper. It's pretty evident where your paper process is. Everything related to service can be digitally replaced with this mobile strategy. You can reduce your phone time. That's there's two benefits there. Of course, you're reducing the cost of your cell phone service, but also the actual labor time spent on the phone, calling back and forth, getting information that could be very easily sent to your mobile device. Same with the number of emails. Emails don't cost money, but the time related to sending the email certainly does. So if your technician or your service dispatcher are writing emails, they're not doing something else. Fuel and road time are also important considerations, especially when you can assign, when you get, in a sense, lucky and you can assign a technician to a job that's nearby their current location. That means that they don't have to drive as far, they don't have to assess as much fuel and road time, which is a big advantage. And then the same for paperwork. The paperwork side of the cost, it comes from when the technician has to drive into the office or drive back home, print something, come back out to the field. That's all non-billable time. So we have to be careful and reduce that, and the way to do that is to just avoid the paper altogether. And then the last major section of benefits are the streamlining of operations. So how are we streamlining the operations? Well, you're going to free up additional billable hours for every technician. They're not going to be spending as much time with paperwork, so this is a big improvement. Your technicians are some of your most expensive. Once you factor in the fuel and the van and all the overhead related, technicians are one of the most expensive resources your dealership actually has out there. So you have to be careful. Every hour is critical for them. Plus, they're pretty high risk resource. You want to make sure that they don't get stuck doing something that's wasting time. You want to reduce the friction for them as much as possible. Invoicing is streamlined. So that's this is something that I'm going to say a lot. It's your work in process. It's your WIP. It's your invoicing WIP. How many of your dealership dollars are stuck out there in invoicing right now on the service side? You can cut that down dramatically from 30 days down to the same day. The customer can literally receive their invoice, especially if you're sending email invoices, the same day that the service is done. You can eliminate double entry. We mentioned that before. Double entry is just a waste of time at the branch location. You can save tech time because don't forget, now they have a digital device. So with that, they can have manuals and checklists built into the mobile device. You can even, and we'll see this, we'll have a little bit more discussion when we do the demonstration. You can even customize the mobile device to provide certain lists that you need for your business. And then, and we already discussed van replenishment. You can see van stock. You can replenish your stock faster. That's going to give you something closer to a just-in-time type of inventory. You may not need to carry as much van stock if you know immediately when your stock is used up. So now that we know what the benefits are, I've sort of tiptoed around what this mobile solution entails. What are the parts? What are the blocks that I need to put together in order to get a mobile solution out in the field? Well, you can start with the service dispatcher and the field technician. I think that kind of bookends the discussion, and I think you've got both parts. If you're on this webinar, it's likely that you have both parts figured out. Somebody in the branch and somebody in the field doing the service. The service dispatcher's job is to obviously talk to the customer, enter the data that the customer gives about the breakdown or service requirement into the database, into their ERP system, which, of course, we have EquipSoft listed here, which I think we think, of course, your ERP should be EquipSoft, and that's a different webinar altogether, but we just listed it up here. Here's your ERP system, whatever that happens to be. And then the next layer is this application called Mobile Frame. So the solution that I'm presenting today uses an EquipSoft certified tool called Mobile Frame to package and send the work order data to the mobile device. So Mobile Frame is a tool that attaches to EquipSoft. This server can run in the branch. It's usually located near wherever the ERP system is running. The data that goes from the ERP to the Mobile Frame service, it gets packaged up in a way that can be sent over the internet. Okay, so that server looks for changes in the ERP. It sends these updates over wireless networks like Wi-Fi, cell phone networks. Like Wi-Fi can be your technician's home Wi-Fi, the dealership Wi-Fi, even a public Wi-Fi like a Panera Bread or a McDonald's can be a perfectly good place to download data if you don't have self-service on your mobile devices. Then, okay, so where does the data go? It went from your Mobile Frame server to where? It has to go to a device. So now remember, I said it a couple times, we've replaced the paper with a device. And that device is going to be a tablet, maybe a rugged tablet with ruggedized with a ruggedized frame, rubber on the outside to make it easy to carry and possibly survive a drop or being hit by something in the field. A laptop that you might already be using for diagnostics or other field-related activities could be a perfect jumping-off point for mobile frame as well. It could be another application running on top of a laptop that you're already using for diagnostics. So that laptop grabs that information over the internet from the mobile frame server, and it shows it on an application, a mobile frame application that runs right on that laptop or tablet or PDA, or even a cell phone can run this very lightweight application. And then finally, obviously, the field technician goes ahead and reads that mobile client app, for mobile frame client app. So the biggest question probably that we get, and this is very critical to this discussion, is what happens if the internet connection is lost? What if the tech leaves the cell phone coverage area? What if Wi-Fi isn't available? What if they're inside of a warehouse and the signal is blocked? Okay, no problem. So when the network is not available, the technician's device will save all the data locally, and the changes will be saved on their local device. It's going to let you list the work orders that are already assigned to you, add parts and labor, get your signature, and you can leave the job site without ever having internet at the site. And the next time that the internet is restored, the device is going to automatically synchronize with the server again. So that's an important point I want you to carry through this. All right, so we listed benefits, explained to you what are the parts included. It seems pretty straightforward. And the question you have to probably ask yourself next is, all right, great. So if there's so many benefits and it's such a fantastic product to put in the field, then why isn't every dealer already using some sort of mobile technology? So for example, mobile frame has actually been around for years in various versions. Well, the challenge is this. The challenge is connecting all the parts. So the data that's in mobile frame has to be mapped to your ERP system, in this case, EquipSoft. Okay? The data connector portion of it has stopped many companies from performing their implementation. So EquipSoft solves this problem by providing a data connector as part of its mobile frame offering. Our connector is market ready, so that means that with EquipSoft and mobile frame, you can connect the two using the functions that I'm going to show you during the demo portion. The other challenge is the interface. So the interface for the technician on their mobile device has to be tuned to the market. The equipment sales market, material handling, construction, has very specific needs for what the technician sees out in the field. That's not the same as any other industry. And EquipSoft has a standard interface showing most of what an equipment dealer would want to do in the field. It comes right out of the box. When you buy mobile frame through EquipSoft, you get the connector and the interface to get yourself up and running. And that's kind of that's sort of the base of what we're talking about here. So what is that interface that I mentioned? Well, the interface has a lot of components, and the main way to see them, the best way to see them, is to sort of put ourselves in the shoes of a service technician just for a minute. We're going to go and we're going to sit in the van and we're going to see what the service tech is going to be able to see. So, but just before I do that, what I want to say is that mobile frame has a fully configurable interface, and what a fully configurable interface means is that you can change the forms, you can change the business rules, you can tell what kind of business functions have permissions to do what in the field. For example, you may or may not allow them to make new work orders out in the field. You can add completely new business functions right in the mobile device, which we'll talk about in our last slide. It's very feasible for clients to customize their own interfaces, and this is one of the main benefits to mobile frame. Okay, so I think at this point what I would like to do is jump right into showing you a little bit about excuse me, a little bit about the mobile frame interface itself. So where are we? We're in the van, and we're holding a mobile device at this point. The mobile device is going to have a display. The shape and the layout is going to vary depending on exactly what it is. Is it a tablet? Is it a laptop? In this case, you're going to see a display similar to what would be run on a laptop, but I'm going to point out some touchscreen components that are on the screen. You're going to see that the interface, you can see that the interface is divided into some major components. On the left side is your list of work orders. Your work orders these are the work orders that are actually assigned to you. Remember, we are the service technician at this moment. So this software is showing me that I have a list of several work orders that I need to pay attention to. I can split them up as repair orders or PM work orders. I can then go over to the right side of the screen once I've selected one. Okay, we'll select this Queenston Furniture work order. And I can see the work order header. I can see the segment list. I can see tabs based on the details, parts, equipment history, etc. The critical points I want you to walk away from in this just brief look is everything is color-coded. It's quick to the eye. As soon as you know what these colors mean, then you don't have to read every detail, every word on the screen to understand where you need to click. Also, the whole interface is designed around the use of mobile devices. So that means that I can of course I can type because I have a keyboard on my side, but maybe your device doesn't. So all of the entry fields have these pop-up entry keyboards or pop-up number pads so that you can use your fingers. I like to say my fat fingers, if you see mine, you'd know what I'm talking about, in order to enter this data. So the buttons are big enough for you to actually do that. All right, so over here you can see, so just to sort of fill this in, the header is going to show you where am I going, who am I supposed to talk to. The segment list is going to tell you, of course, the segments on the work order. What is it exactly that I'm supposed to do? When you select the segment, you can see information about the equipment on that segment. You can see what parts and labor have been added to that segment. You can also see the equipment history. This is an important point. This is all of the history for this piece of equipment is available right here in the interface. This is going to make sure that you're not repeating the same mistakes over and over and over again. And then also note that your header notes, the notes that, remember your service dispatcher took a number of notes from your customer, and all of that information is available right here in the header. Let's take a look at one service order and actually go ahead and enter some of this data so that you have a feel for how it actually looks in the system. Okay, so I'm picking a different work order. We're going to pick this one from Sierra Minerals. Okay, and I'm going to grab the first segment. So in this segment, I may want to add parts and labor. So let's go through what that would look like. It's very simple. If I want to add parts, I select New. I can choose a part. This is important. This is my van inventory. My van inventory is based on my van availability, and it's done in real time. It's listed in real time, which means I actually have this stock on my van right now. And I can add these parts to my work order in real time, and that information is going to get sent right back to the main office. Remember I said that we can do van replenishment in real time? This is how we do it. So I select a part. Here's a spark plug. I'm going to enter a quantity. Remember my drop-down window for entering numbers, and I'm going to save that part. Very simple. Of course, I can save as many parts as I want, as many quantities as I want. The information about quantity is here. Again, you can choose exactly which parts, which data is visible. Like, for example, on this screen, we aren't showing the pricing information to the technician. Maybe they don't need to see that. Okay, labor entry. Great, so let's enter some labor. It's very simple. Let's do a start time. Let's say 9 o'clock. And a stop time, let's say 9:30. Okay, and save that. All right, great. So 9 to 9:30 added half an hour of labor to my work order, to my segment. When we designed this interface. This is one option. Another option might be, and some customers have told us that this is what they prefer, is instead of having a manual time entry like I just did, you could have a start and a stop time. So start when you get on site, stop when you get off site. And remember, these are all based on your internal business rules. So you need to determine this as you're deploying mobile frame, and we'll talk about that in a moment. So assuming you've entered all the parts and all the labor that you need to on this work order, we can take a look at what it would look like to actually close it out. Oh, one other item I forgot to do here. Let's increase our hour meter reading. Let's every time we do service, we can update the hour meter reading as well. This is going to help you with your PMs. Make sure that your hour meter readings are more accurate. Okay. Now, if I click on, as I click on Finalize Work Order, you can see a summary of the labor and other information for the work order. You can see that there's a section for notes. There's a section for you to enter the customer's PO number right here on the finalization screen. You can enter the customer's email address, and you can decide how you would like to deliver their invoice. You can enter that right here. So remember, you're talking to the customer right now. You have the device in your hand, and that means that you can do what? You can capture the customer's signature. So here's my signature. It's not a very good one because I'm using my mouse instead of my finger. I'm going to go and clear that just so no one can write checks in my name. And I can write who signed it in text so that it's totally legible. And I can add any notes that the customer wants me to here or that are required. I can, depending on your business rules, I can actually close the work order. You may prefer to have a review process in place that keeps the work order from being completely closed in the business system first. Again, this is totally up to you and depends on your business process. And then you can close the work order if you want to at this point. A couple other functions that I want to point out are related around photos. You can add photos to the system. Here we go. We can add photos to the system. For example, this is how I found the truck when I arrived. And we can add a photograph here. Okay, so it's important to note that these photos can either be sent from another device, like for example your camera or your cell phone, or they can be actually taken from the device itself. A lot of tablets and laptops and portable devices have the camera built right in. So let's select the photo that we're interested in. Okay, we can save that here. Okay, so this is a general overview of the mobile frame interface. And you may think, okay, great. So now we've sort of repeated a lot of the functions that are in EquipSoft. Except for one, there's one major difference, and that is something that I talked about before. Do you see this unsynchronized changes exists? This button allows me to synchronize the changes that I've done on my mobile device with the server. This is actually live connected to an EquipSoft server right now, with a server manually. I can make this synchronization process can be completely automated. I can have it happen every 5 minutes. I can have it happen every hour, whatever you want. Again, it's a business choice. And it's always going to warn me if there are items that still need to be synchronized with the server. This means that I don't have to be on the internet. And I remember I put up the lightning bolt before. This is a critical point, and this is one of the major reasons that we divert we go to mobile frame is due to the ability to cache this data locally on the device. So that's a little bit about the mobile frame interface. Of course, you have the option to customize this interface as much as you want, but we'll talk about that a little bit when we get into the deployment part. All right. So let's continue with the presentation. So let's talk about deployment a little bit. Now that you know what you need, you know what it's going to look like, what do you actually need to do in order to deploy the system? So proper deployment is key for good ROI. If you do it wrong, you could spend a lot of money doing it wrong. That's why EquipSoft can be your partner in making even the deployment process cost effective. How do we do that? We designed a best practice template for customers to use. The best practice template means a couple different things. We recommend using we have a basic template which you saw for mobile frame, which you can use to go live for a select group of technicians in your company. So the select group, you're going to pick a group of techs or maybe a single branch in order to test the product and see what the feedback is coming back from the field. That feedback you will use to incrementally improve the software. So what does that mean? You could try to change the mobile frame software to perfectly and exactly match everything you need from a mobile solution. But we see it as important from an ROI standpoint to embrace this idea of continuous improvement instead. Add functions on a regular schedule. Don't get stuck in a mode where you try to make everything live in the first day, and that's your best way to get a good return on your investment for this type of product. We have some experiences where customers have really tried to pile a lot of functionality into mobile frame, and it does push out their release date. And so you have more time between where you actually purchase the software and when you actually get the benefit of it. You'll see an immediate benefit just using the EquipSoft template. So this is a good discussion from the standpoint of how to actually deploy the software, because this is where many vendors sort of fall apart in the deployment phase. EquipSoft has the experience to actually take this to the field, from not just sell you the software, but actually get you operational, up and running on it. Okay, so up to this point, and for good reason, we've talked about service technicians. We've talked about the applications for service. But one last point that I want to make, one last slide that I think is really critical, is that we don't just focus on service. It's called a mobile solution. It's not just called a service solution. And that's because your service technicians are not the only ones that are out in the field. Your sales staff is out there as well. So what could this mean for your sales staff? Remember, we have a template for the service solution already in place, but customers are constantly asking us about what can we do for our sales staff. And you can do quite a bit. You can extend any of the interfaces that are in your business system, quotes and contracts, information about equipment, etc., into the mobile frame interface. Remember, we already built the connector between the two software packages, so extending the data out to mobile frame is something that you can do with help from EquipSoft. So what are some of the possible benefits? Like I said, quotes in the field. You can actually generate real quotes and have them emailed potentially right to the customer. You can generate rental contracts. In order to generate a rental contract, you need real-time equipment availability. That's something that mobile connected devices do absolutely fantastically. You can have real-time customer history. You drive up into the customer site. Wouldn't you like to know if there is a technician out servicing their equipment right now at one of the facilities? Wouldn't you like to know if something is in breakdown at the moment, or there's been a part on back order on one of their service orders? That would be very helpful information to have as you go right into the customer site. And then there's sort of a nuance where the technician who's out in the field can have an interface that actually lets them go back and notify the sales staff of an opportunity. There's a lot more salespeople in your sales staff than you probably realize. Technicians are out listening to the customers probably as often as your sales staff is. So they see opportunities. They see equipment that needs service. They see a rental opportunity. They see a new sale opportunity. And if you want to, you could just implement that kind of notification directly back into the mobile device. You could rely on the technician to pick up the phone and call the sales department, sure, or you can integrate it directly into the device that they carry around with them to do the rest of their work as well. So don't forget your sales department when you're thinking about your next step of your mobile solution. All right, folks, so that's That's the mobile strategy webinar, and we've reached sort of the question portion. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it back to Dave, who's been patiently waiting, and see if there's any questions that have been brought up during the webinar.
Yeah, thanks very much, Nick. Great presentation. All right, everyone. Like Nick said, at this time we would like to go through some of the questions we received via chat throughout the webinar. Nick, the first one is someone asks, can I use mobile frame for my driver for drop-off and pickup, or for rental check-in in the yard?
Okay, yeah, sure. So this is very similar to the answer I gave with the sales staff. The mobile interface is useful anywhere that you're walking away from the computer. So if you are doing pickup and drop-off, if you're a driver, you may want to send status information back through mobile frame back to the ERP system. Yes, it's very, very reasonable to do that. Even for, yeah, the rental question is also interesting because depending on how big your rental yard is, I mean, it can go anywhere from huge rental area with multiple yards to the actual rental desk personnel walks out and brings the equipment forward. So depending on how big the scale is, yeah, it could make sense to bring a mobile device with you out to the yard to say, yes, the equipment has been picked up, yes, it's been dropped off at service for the checkout evaluation, etc., to keep track of the statuses along the way, and all that can be done with mobile frame.
Very good. Another person asks, if I don't have EquipSoft, can I still deploy mobile frame?
Yes, you can, of course. You can deploy mobile frame as an information tool. You still can use the interfaces that I just showed you, and you can report out of the mobile frame, directly out of the mobile frame database. So the benefit you lose by not having EquipSoft is that you don't have that connector. If you remember the integration is key slide, then that connector is going to bring you a lot of benefit. But mobile frame on its own can also bring you a lot of benefit. And so, yes, the answer is yes, and we can help you with that as well.
And also, what kinds of devices specifically can run mobile frame?
Okay, so I think I mentioned a couple of sort of generic options like laptops and PDAs, cell phones, but the real requirements on the client side are there's a little bit more nuance to this. Now, I showed you an interface that has the synchronization capability where you can go offline, and that offline capability is available in Windows devices. So Windows devices can be laptops, they could be tablets, they could be there's a lot of small format PDAs that are Windows devices that can all use that synchronize function. You can use Android devices with the mobile frame client and still use synchronize. And if you're like, for example, if you're a big Apple fan, you can still use your devices. You just you have to use it in what would be considered a constant connection mode, which means not using that synchronize desynchronize function. You'd be using it as a web app. So as a web app, you can use anything you could dream up, and so that web application is available. It looks the same as the client application when you launch it. So the answer is really any device that's mobile connected. If you want to use the synchronization function, you need Windows or Android.
Got it. Okay. Well, all right, everyone. At this time, we've pretty much reached our allotted 45-minute window that we promised everyone. We know that you all probably have other things to get to this morning. This webinar has been recorded and will shortly be available on our website, equip-soft.com. On behalf of Nick and the entire EquipSoft team, we sincerely thank you for taking time to join us today. If you have any other questions about our mobile solution, or if you have any general questions about EquipSoft, we'd be happy to assist you in any way we can. So thanks again, everyone. We hope you can join us again in our ongoing series of webcasts, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.